You've been taught the Tower of Babel fell because a divine hand confused their language. But that is only the simple textbook version of a complex, ancient disaster. The real crisis that destroyed this colossal project wasn't external. It was a vicious political struggle, a total internal collapse of consensus and logistics that escalated into true chaos. The Tower of Babel was stopped not by a sudden confusion of tongue, but by internal civil war. The greatest power in the ancient world ultimately broke itself.
You know the story. One city, one language, one massive tower built to pierce the heavens. The punishment? God scattered them, confusing their speech. But what if the confusion of language was just the distraction? What if the real, terrifying punishment for the Tower of Babel wasn't about different words, but about crippling humanity's potential forever? You're on Past Check, and today we're digging deep into the lost history of the world's first great project. Welcome back to Past Check. The conventional narrative of Babel is simple. A rebellious group tried to build their way to God, and God reacted by creating division. But our focus today is not the what, but the why. The biblical text says they built the tower because they wanted to make a name for themselves, lest they be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. This isn't a story of architecture, it's a story of unifying, overwhelming power. Imagine a world of unlimited cooperation. No war, no borders, no trade tariffs, and exponential, unchecked technological growth. This is the human singularity, a frightening concept where the entire species is pointed in one direction. The hidden punishment wasn't merely the creation of Spanish, Chinese, or English. The hidden cost was the destruction of human consensus, the immediate introduction of political friction, and the permanent end of a single, unified vision for civilization. The very foundation of geopolitics today rests on this original divine fracture. To understand the punishment, we must understand the structure. The Tower of Babel was not a simple pyramid. It was a ziggurat, a massive tiered structure common in Mesopotamia. But more importantly, the whole city was the project. These people weren't just stacking bricks, they were building an infrastructure of total control. They gathered in a place called Shinar, likely Sumer, a fertile crescent of innovation. Their unity was producing a manufacturing and resource engine capable of achieving unprecedented scale. The ziggurat was the visible monument, but the real threat was the invisible network of consensus that allowed every single person to understand the plan, their role, and the goal without a single moment of lost translation or political debate. They had achieved ultimate, frictionless execution. This is why the scattering had to be total, not just confusing their words, but destroying the entire organizational logic of their civilization. The chilling part of this whole episode isn't the act of building, but the divine reaction. Historians and theologians often gloss over Genesis 11:6, but it contains the most critical, almost fearful line. And now, nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. This is the key. The intervention wasn't purely about arrogance, it was about fear of potential. The consequence of one language wasn't just smooth communication, it was the ability to execute on any shared thought or goal without friction. It's an admission that a unified humanity, given time, resources, and infinite consensus, would inevitably and successfully challenge the divine order. The scattering of languages was a deliberate, necessary brake on human progress. It introduced inefficiency, misunderstanding, and, most crucially, distrust, the necessary ingredients to ensure that humanity could never again challenge the heavens with a single, unstoppable purpose. This is the ancient history of geopolitical division, where every argument, every border, and every war is a faint echo of that original punishment. But who was the architect of this disastrous ambition? The key figure is Nimrod, described as a mighty hunter before the Lord. In ancient texts and traditions outside of the Bible, from Jewish midrash to Persian law, Nimrod is more than a king. He's a representation of the first great human tyranny. a desire to rule both the earth and, through the tower, the heavens. The Tower of Babel was his political statement, a power grab to centralize all authority and culture. Nimrod understood that unity of language was a tool for absolute dominion. By dismantling the language, the divine intervention simultaneously dismantled Nimrod's nascent global empire. The punishment, therefore, was twofold. It stopped human unity, and it shattered the world's first global dictatorship. Was this divine intervention a rescue from tyranny? Or was it just a preservation of the balance of power, ensuring no human or group could wield that level of unified control again? Now, look at our modern world. We have real-time translators, the internet, and instant communication. We have solved the language problem, but we are arguably more fragmented than ever. We have not solved the consensus problem, the true hidden punishment. Think about the world's most critical challenges: global pandemics, climate change, or the exploration of space. We possess the technology, the resources, and the scientific knowledge to solve these problems, but global policy is paralyzed. Why? Because we can't achieve the unified vision, the single goal, the frictionless execution that the builders of Babel possessed. The spirit of Babel lives on in every political stalemate, every technological rivalry, and every cultural misunderstanding that stalls our progress. The ancient division created a permanent blueprint for global friction. We can all speak to each other, but we can't all agree with each other. This permanent structural state of disagreement, this failure to achieve global consensus, that is the hidden punishment of the Tower of Babel. A punishment designed to keep humanity small, scattered, and endlessly debating, ensuring that we never again imagine to do anything on a scale that could rival the divine. The history books told you the easy story. Past checks showed you the dark, geopolitical truth beneath the surface. If this deep dive into biblical history and the untold stories of the ancient world fascinates you, you are exactly where you need to be. Hit that red subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next shocking revelation on ancient history. What do you think was the true reason for God's intervention? Was it a punishment or a protective measure against tyranny? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to explore another biblical figure with a dark past, click the video on your screen right now to watch the dark story of Solomon, the wisest king in the Bible. Thank you for checking the past with us.